Hello, I'm Todd Little, Chairman of Kanban University, and welcome to the Kanban University Partner Webinar Series. Today we have a special event where we're going to be celebrating the second anniversary of the Kanban Maturity Model 1.2. I'd like to introduce some of our special guests for today. First of all, of course, we have David Anderson, the pioneer of the Kanban method and co-author of the Kanban Maturity Model and CEO of Mobius Group. Teodora Bozheva, who's a well-known Kanban practitioner, also co-author of the Kanban Maturity Model and an expert in Lean Six Sigma, CMI, MI, and CEO of Berry Process Agility. Marco Mendes, who's got accredited Kanban trainer and consultant, co-founder and principal consultant at Archie Business Agility. And then Diana Daryazna, who is the product manager, marketing manager of KMM Plus, Mobius Group Europe. So with that, I'd like to turn it over, talk about our agenda for today. First of all, we have the latest news about the Kanban project and portfolio management extension for KMMs. Secondly, we'll have the practical experiences of using the Kanban maturity model, some best practices and advice from Marco. David will then tell us about some of the next steps for KMM and for KMM Plus. And then Diana will have an interactive session with a little bit of presence in there too. And finally, we'll have leftover time we'll have for a Q&A session. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Teodora to talk about Kanban project and portfolio management extension for the Kanban maturity model. Teodora, welcome.
Okay, thank you very much, Todd. I'm really excited to be here to celebrate this second anniversary of the Kanban, publishing the Kanban maturity model. And today I would like to share what is our experience and what we are doing with respect to applying the Kanban maturity model in the context of project organizations. I can say that many project organizations nowadays are really in a critical situation or critical situations because of customer pressure and market pressure, they really need to reduce project delivery time. And also they have to improve their process efficiency as a means to reduce costs of the projects. They also know that they spend lots of time in meetings and they have problems in the communication in the companies, and still the delivery on time is a challenge for them. So therefore they're interested in some approaches for improving these situations in the organization. On the other side, because many organizations are running large projects, complex projects, they know that if they make big changes in the organizations, in the projects as well, it takes lots of time to resolve all the difficulties that arise as a consequence of introducing these big changes. Therefore, they are not keen on selecting approaches that require structural changes in the organization or very significant changes in their processes and in their roles. From this perspective, the Kanban maturity model is really very appropriate for them because of its evolutionary approach, and also what project organizations like very much about the Kanban maturity model is this integrated development of cultural values, management practices, and business outcomes. So when they understand what the Kanban maturity model proposes to them, they really love this approach. So they are very much interested in seeing how they can take advantage of the Kanban maturity model. The point is that very frequently they hear that Kanban is only for operations, for business as usual, for services, or maybe it is more appropriate for software development and IT organizations, and especially project organizations who develop tangible products. They are either confused or simply they miss information. They lack information about how they can apply the Kanban maturity model in their organizations precisely to achieve these desired outcomes. And if you ask them when they want to see the effects of using the practices from the Kanban maturity model, it is immediately, as soon as possible. Some organizations would even tell you that they needed yesterday already these benefits. So they are really eager to introduce, to take advantage of the practices in the Kanban Maturity Model. Can we go to the next slide, please? And the good point is that all the guidance in the Kanban Maturity Model, and especially what we have started defining in its extension for project program and portfolio management, is that it is completely aligned with the guidance that project organizations receive or use in bodies of knowledge like PMBOK 7 or PRINCE2 or PM Square. So it is absolutely good fit using the extension for the Kanban Maturity Model for project organizations and their body of knowledge that they are currently using. So it is very important when we approach project organizations to explain and to highlight that the KPPM extension is a complementary approach to their body of knowledge. It does not substitute the project management discipline, but it fits very well with it. And it provides a collection of complementary practices that really help project organizations to achieve their the goals of their projects and to manage portfolios successfully, precisely in time of frequent changes and uncertainty. So it is really very important to make organizations understand that they are not going to make very strong changes to their processes and their practices, and their body of knowledge is very useful, very applicable. They will keep using it in the organizations, but they can use it together with practices that come from the extension and are based on the Kanban Maturity Model, of course, in order to provide visibility, instant visibility in the status of their project, to provide fast feedback about problems and about risks in the project, and to facilitate the decision-making based on flow-related data, which is typically missing in project organizations. And as well, all these practices are helping project organizations to improve the communication across the entire organization and to improve the feedback about all the aspects that affect the project delivery. So it's really complementary means, complementary practices to their project management practices that they can easily adopt in the organization without any structural changes and without significant changes to their current practices. So next slide, please. So let me tell you what we've been doing during these 2 years. Maybe some of you remember that between the beta release of the Kanban Maturity Model in 2018 and publishing version 1.2 of the model in 2020, so during these 1.5 to 2 years, we were running the beta program in order to validate and to test the Kanban Maturity Model in the real world company's context. So we are doing something similar. We've been doing something similar during these 2 years. We at Berry Process are working very extensively with project organizations and helping them to address long delivery times, to improve long delivery times by addressing the root causes for these long delivery times. Also, we help them to understand their processes, establish consistent processes, define common policies, explicit policies for the entire organization. You might think that they have defined processes, and many organizations do have defined processes, but when they start applying the practices from the Kanban Maturity Model, appropriately adjusted for them, the consistency of their processes increases a lot. It becomes focused on managing the workflow end-to-end across all the stakeholders that are involved in these projects. And this really helps them first to improve visibility, global visibility of the status of project and portfolios, address problems within the projects and the risk related to the projects very quickly, improve the communication within the projects and between projects in the organizations, also with other stakeholders, with suppliers, with the customer, which they appreciate a lot. And also they start using the data related to the workflow for improving their estimations, which is absolutely critical for project organizations. So we've been working with 16 organizations. Back, please. Some of these organizations were using Kanban for many years before the KMM time. So some of them started like in 2013, 14, but 11 organizations started in 2017, 2018. So when we were already using the beta release of the Kanban Maturity Model. So we have started collecting, and we already have quite good collection of experience and patterns that we observe in these organizations. And this will help us document good and provide good knowledge for all the people who would be willing to use the extension of the Kanban Maturity Model for project management. And the good point is that we are also having good notion about how much time it takes a project organization, for example, when they start using the Kanban Maturity Model, for example, to reach maturity level 2 and to reach maturity level 3. Up to now, our experience is that it takes between 9 months and maybe 1 year and a half from starting from just first knowledge about Kanban and the Kanban Maturity Model to reach maturity level 2, and 1 more year or 1 to 2 years, again, depending on the size and the complexity of the organization, to achieve maturity level 3. We are partnering with Kanbanize in this initiative because especially in organizations who are developing large projects with many stakeholders involved in them and suppliers and many teams of specialists, building the entire solution, the entire network of Kanban systems that helps them manage their projects up to portfolio levels and up to strategic management of the company requires an appropriate tool. Therefore, we are partnering with Kanbanize in this initiative. We already have some good experiences. I don't know whether this is on the next slide or not, so maybe we can check this. No, we are still coming back. Some of these companies that we've been working with have already presented their experience with using the Kanban Maturity Model for improving their processes and project management. For example, in September, Kanbanize and we organized an event, the Oliflow event in Bilbao, and there we saw the experience presented, the experience of ULMA handling systems, Linear Director, Promo Pharma, Ispacol. So these are really companies that are running complex projects, and it was very interesting to see their experience. Banco Industrial from Guatemala is having very good experience as well, and they're doing really very good job. Only within 6-7 months, they managed to define their solution for managing their projects up to portfolio level, and this helped them reduce the time, for example, for the project status meetings from hours to just a few minutes, because they really had a very good visibility in the status of their projects, and they're in a situation of collecting and starting using the flow-related data to improve their estimation process. So really very good experience. And in addition, now we can go to the next slide. In addition to this experience, we are discovering an appropriate approach for introducing the practices from the extension in project organizations, because we have identified how we can select and define a group or start working with a group of people from the organizations, from all the levels of the organizations, like department managers, members of the project management offices, members of the teams, executive people from the executive management of the organizations. And in this manner, we are teaching and working with them, with these people. You can see these orange persons, let's say so, on the image. We are working with them and we help them to develop the competencies and the skills that allow them to spread this knowledge within the company. And in this way, what organizations achieve is that first they develop this knowledge and skills, and they define the processes that are appropriate for the organization from inside the organization. So it's not an imported practices, and they therefore they feel the ownership of these practices. And well, knowing about these organizations that are using Kanban and the Kanban Maturity Model for more than 6-7 years already, I can say that these practices stay in the organization. So this is also additional experience that we are gaining about how to introduce the model in such a way that the organizations can progress, evolve quickly, and ensure that there is no way back, that the practices are developed and stay in the organizations. And now we are, well, the current status of the extension of the Kanban Maturity Model for project portfolio management is in, I would say, writing in progress. And I hope that soon we can publish at least the beta version so that the community can review. I'm happy to answer your questions if you have some.
Thank you, Teodora. We're going to move on to Marco, talking about some practical experience of working with the KMM. And as you have questions, just please put them in the chat area and we will collect them all at the end.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Next slide, please. I'll share with you 3 short stories of how I have been using KM and how you can use KMM to improve your management maturity. How to understand a math reality, case number 1, how you can guide your evolutionary change process, case number 2, and how you can use KMM to double your productivity, case number 3. Next slide, please. Case number 1 is to help us to understand a mass reality of a large company with more of 50 teams using agile practice and Kanban practice and a large portfolio of services. The agile coach there wanted to understand how to introduce the proper practice, but you see, in a large organization, you can have many different level of maturities, cultural behaviors, and differences in teams. And this is usual, and KMM can help you to understand this kind of problem from a larger perspective, and also you can zoom in to understand the details that you want to understand when you're assessing maturity. Okay, next slide, please. And one important aspect at the KMM goes much beyond practice. It can assess your cultural behaviors, the values and the behaviors that you do on a daily basis. And also it can help you to understand how the culture and the practice are delivering the outcomes that you want to achieve. And in this particular case, next slide, please, we use a simple tool, which is a heat map. You can see here part of a heat map of more than 50 teams. Each team is in a row in this spreadsheet. And in the columns, you can see, okay, you don't see, but in general, you can see here the cultural behaviors, 1 for a column, and also practice. And so, as you can see here, there is a dominant color that is the yellow. And next slide, please. So you can have a global picture of the organization. So if you are an enterprise agile coach, you can see in 5 seconds, which is the overall maturity of your organization. But you can zoom in. Next slide, please. And you can see a specific team. If I'm an agile coach, a scrum master, a Kanban coach that I'm helping a specific team, I can see in a row which is the maturity of this specific team regarding the cultural behaviors, practice, and results. Next slide, please. Also, you can observe a specific cultural behavior in this specific organization. This is a real example. We have poor labor liquidity problem, and we have very low collaboration between team members. And it's an issue that emerged and now it has been tackled by the enterprise agile coach there. Next slide, please. Also, you can look at a specific management practice. And as you can see, you can look at different levels, so you can zoom out and zoom in order to understand better the things that you want to do. Next slide, please. And also, you can look at a specific behavior or practice inside a specific team. So in this context, this tool was very helpful for the enterprise agile coaches, the agile coaches, and the Kanban leaders for each team to understand the messy reality. Next slide, please. Case number 2, how to guide your evolutionary change process. KMM is unique in this aspect. It's not only a maturity model, but it can help you to guide how you're creating the evolutionary change in your company. And in this specific company, they have been using agile practice for more than 4 years, but they could not understand how the process was going on. And this specific artifact from the KMM helped them to understand their reality as well in movement. Next slide, please. So this evolutionary change model is a built artifact that can help you to understand the practice that you need to introduce and how the teams can hold practice as long as your journey. And yes, next slide, please. Thanks. And in this particular example, this is a real artifact. It was used to understand the past reality from a 4-year improvement initiative, and now it has been used as a tool where the people can share information to understand and to have very good conversations about the experiments and cultural behaviors, barriers, and things that can block your management maturity improvement. Next slide, please. And the beautiful side effects of this evolutionary change model, and this is a real information radiator for you, agile coach, and it can deliver you a great feedback mechanism to have safe conversations and can create a visual map. It's not a photo, it's a movie, because it goes on as the time passed by you. Okay, next slide, please. Finally, my last story for this 10-minute part of the webinar. This is a company which we assessed in 2000, and it had a maturity level 0 maturity at that moment. And there were many problems, and they wanted to reduce the work overload, great stress there. We want to improve, of course, the business results, and to improve, of course, the productivity. And next slide, please. And KMM was used in this particular scenario to help to put the proper practice, because if you put too much pressure, you can overreach and people react and they sabotage your initiative. Also, you don't want to create a false summit plateau. So the senior management educate herself and her leaders and start steadily to preserve the former investment on the Scrum. And here they use Kanban as a playbook to deliver the proper practices at the proper teams at the proper time, avoiding these 2 modes of failure. And next slide, please. And here you see the results. In 1 year, they went from 400 stories in one specific team to 800 stories. They double the productivity, maintaining the quality without contracting more developers. So KMM is real. It can deliver you real results. Next slide, please. So in short, key takeaways. KMM can be used in many different scenarios. On next Monday, it can help you to understand your messy reality, see beyond where no other maturity model can see, to guide you through your journey, and finally, and the best, to deliver better economic results for your company. Okay, that's it. Next
All right,
slide,
thank you,
please.
Marco. And now I'd like to turn it over to David Anderson, who will lead us through the KMM and the KMM Plus future.
I might have been on mute. Thank you, Marco. That was fascinating and great to see some evidence that the Kanban maturity model and Kanban really work. Thank you very much. And exciting to see what we've been doing with project management with Teodora. Thanks, Teodora. And maintaining the quality that we've had since the beginning of this. We don't publish things until we've tried and tested it very thoroughly. 16 companies in Teodora's beta program for the PPPM extension. Very solidly developed piece of work, and it should be very successful when we introduce it in the broader market. So what are we doing? What's coming next? And our general direction. The KMM Plus is our platform for delivering content, applications and services. It's not just online publication of book content, but we wanted to have a single definitive source. There's a lot of Kanban information out on the internet. Much of it is not of very good quality. So when someone wants the authoritative information, it will always be available on KMM Plus. There are 3 ways for you to learn the Kanban maturity model today. You can take training from accredited trainers, such as Teodora, Marco, or you can take online training directly with me and Anya Radzakowska from the David J. Anderson School of Management. And then you can use KMM Plus as your learning platform. And gradually we're rolling out a number of online modules that enable you to take very small modular pieces of training and self-paced online learning. What's the future for the Kanban maturity model as we move towards the publication of KMM 1.3 over the next 12 months or so? There are 4 main pillars for what we're doing, and it's very much incremental to KMM 1.2. There is more leadership guidance in the formal publication of our leadership maturity model. So while outcomes follow practices and practices follow culture, and we need to lead with values to change the culture, the recognition is the lead word there, that we need more guidance on leadership, and we need to teach leadership development, to actively develop the mature leaders you need to enable the organizational maturity that brings all the economic benefits that Marco and Teodora have been illustrating for us. Then, of course, we have the project program portfolio management extension and the mapping of all these practices. Teodora's taking the lead on that. And we have the appraisal method. When we first set out down the path for KMM, we weren't sure whether we would develop a formal appraisal method, but it's become clear from a lot of you out there using KMM that you need confidence to be doing the right things. You also need some verification, some some credibility to what you're doing, and formal appraisals are a way of providing that, providing the credibility. In addition to that, we're looking at road mapping, the evolutionary change. How do we get from, say, maturity level 1 to level 4, building a roadmap for that and being able to track it. And this is all about ensuring that Kanban coaches around the world have the confidence and the credibility to be effective in their job. And finally, enterprise services planning, our large-scale enterprise solution that we parked on the shelf back in 2016 when a few of us in the community, particularly Teodora and I, recognized that the market was not mature enough to implement scaled business agility. Large-scale business agility was not possible in most companies because they lacked the organizational maturity and they lacked the leadership maturity. So instead, what we really needed was a maturity model to bring the market up to the point where they can be successful at scale. And that's really maturity level 4, to be completely successful with large-scale implementations. Well, we've been doing KMM for 5-6 years already, and we're now seeing enough companies being sufficiently successful that we can turn our attention again to enterprise services planning. So we'll be providing the mapping of all the ESP practices, mostly at the deeper maturity levels 4, 5, and 6, which we've held back since early in the community preview version was the last time that we published that, and we withdrew it. We will be publishing that again. And we have KMM Plus. It's 2 years old now. When we started it, people thought, well, it's just an alternative to having an ebook. And actually, it's way more than that. KMM Plus is our platform for delivering a lot of authoritative, definitive content. All the new content for KMM 1.3 and the things I've just mentioned, they appear there first. It's searchable. There's a lot of downloadable resources, posters, infographics, Q&As, free book chapters. And the posters are all mapped, so they're clickable, and they can take you directly to the relevant piece of content. We find that beginners want to start by reading book chapters, but once they're regularly using it, they use the posters. They select a poster that's relevant for them, perhaps a culture mapping poster. They click on something, it takes them right to the content immediately. Next slide, Diana. So the latest update, what we're doing with KMM Plus, the corporate features enable you to buy corporate licenses to administer those named seat licenses. You get better pricing. You can manage your team anytime. And this is something that we've been doing informally and piloting for the last year to 18 months. And that functionality is now in the tool. Next. Originally, the content was all in English. We're now facilitating a community-sourced way of translating content. We have some formal translations. For example, the German language was formally translated by our partners in Hamburg from IT Agile and published by the German publisher D. We have brought that content back and put it online. But for countries where we don't have official published books in your language, we enable the community to make translations, and we acknowledge those community contributors. Marco's one of our expert translators, and the people can create content, they can do translations, they can provide us with materials such as static canvas, the system thinking approach to implementing Kanban. So a canvas for implementing static workshops. That's all downloadable content. And what do we have coming up next? So the first thing is don't start from scratch, right? Kanban templates, the static template, the evolutionary change management canvas. Canvases for using in your actual work. You saw that Marco was using the ECM canvas. He illustrated that for us. That's now available as a download. We're also making the Fit for Purpose 3rd edition available through F4P.plus, and all that content will be housed on KMM Plus. So one source for 2 books full of content, lots of new infographics to help navigate the Fit for Purpose material. We have the Where Am I appraisal tool, and following that, there'll be the roadmap planning tool. So there'll be tools as well as content. Then we have the Keep It Clean for the corporate accounts, an online cabinet for projects that you're running, the ability to bookmark and highlight content, mark it up. So if you're reading a particular piece of the content and you want to share that with your colleagues with your own commentary, that's possible now. And connecting people, the ability to use the KMM Plus platform to identify a suitable accredited Kanban coach or trainer, Kanban coaching professionals, to match consumers who need help with Kanban coaching and navigating the KMM and all of its content, making plans for their organization. You'll be able to do that via our platform. It becomes a marketplace for Kanban expertise around the world. And now I'll hand over to Diana for the surprise time.
Yes, thank you so much. So for this part, our KMM Plus team has prepared a special activity for those who are watching our webinar online. We want to give away 3 months free access to the whole KMM Plus platform to 3 winners of today's contest. The rules are pretty simple. Our experts have prepared questions, 1 question from each expert, and we would like to give away the free access for 3 months to the winner who gonna be the first to write the correct answer to the chat. I know that everyone on the webinar sees the chat, so we will be waiting for the correct answer in the chat. Let's start with the first question from Teodora. How does the Kanban project and portfolio management extension relate bodies of knowledge? How does the Kanban project and portfolio management extension relate to project management bodies of knowledge? Please write your answer in the chat, and let's see who will be the first to write an answer. And I know that if people were with us from the beginning and watched Teodora's part, they may already have a response to this question if they were attentive. I see that we have messages that this chat is deactivated. Then we can do it via questions and answers, as I understand.
Okay, we have a winner.
Yes, great. Who is this person?
Marianne Wagler has responded that it is a compliment to PMBOK. I think that's
okay.
reliably close. Yes, Teodora?
Yes, absolutely correct. Great.
Great job.
Very well. Great job. Thank you so much. And we will ask the winner to please message us on our email to be granted with the 3 months access. Let's continue with our contest. And the next question is from Marco. What are the 3 pillars of the KMM architecture used to assess and improve organizational maturity? Again, I please ask to write the right answer to questions and answers box then. Okay.
Yes, we have an answer.
Okay. So who was the first here? I see
I have
Fabio.
Fabio. Yeah.
Fabio, great. Fabio, please, we do ask you to message to our email.
Yes,
so
and
we
the
can
answer
keep in touch with you.
is culture, practices, and outcomes.
Great. So, and the last question is from David. What is level 3 in the leadership maturity model called? So, do we have someone who knows the right answer? Well, almost. I was close.
I think we have a winner.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, go ahead. Ed.
Okay.
So the winner's Eduardo Bobson, if I look correctly. Chris Perisotti's answer, customer focused, is it's a good answer, but it's not the name of the level.
Okay.
It is what we're using for the leadership maturity model, but for the organizational maturity model, fit for purpose is correct.
So we please ask Eduardo to message us, and we can continue with granting the 3 months free access. For those who...
And Diana, did you mention that if the winner already has a subscription, they'll be able to gift the 3 months free access to a friend or colleague?
Yes, we will actually continue the emailing with the winner to for him to let us know if he wants to keep or give it as a present to his friend or colleague. So for those who didn't win today, you still have a chance to get the 3 months free access. You can go to our LinkedIn page where we today started our Black Friday activity. This QR code will just bring you directly to this activity. The idea is that you can be one of the 5 winners of the 3 months free access to KMM Plus platform. If you will be subscribed to our LinkedIn page, if you're going to comment "I'm in" in the comment, and as well, if you want to mention someone that you know would like to participate too, this is an advantage for you, because then your name will appear with the same amount of times in the list for the draw as many people you have mentioned. We would like to announce the results on the 1st of December, so you have time till the 30th of November to participate. We will choose the winners randomly. There will be 5 people who are gonna get the access for 3 months to the KMM Plus platform. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will pass right now to Todd to moderate the part about questions and answers.
Thank you, Diana. And thanks to all of our panelists for the excellent discussion on KMM, project portfolio management extension, some case studies, and the future of KMM and KMM Plus. So now what we'd like to do is open the floor to questions. We've had a few questions come in on the Q&A. If you have anything additional that you'd like to ask, please put it into the Q&A area. We have a great one to start with. This is from Chris' presentation, and he's ready to get started doing exactly what Marco presented in case 1. So that's fantastic. His question is, where did you get the list of cultural behaviors? Is there a web page book you'd recommend, or was it developed internally? And that could be any one of the 3 of you who might take that one up. So each of you. So I don't know, Marco, if you want to start, and maybe either David or Teodora pick up on that as to how the cultures came about.
Okay, kicking the ball. Chris, the first part is that it is already codified in KMM.plus or the excellent Kanban Maturity Model book. So you will see there dozens of cultural practices that you can learn. In this particular case, we have to adapt the vocabulary that was the most difficult part, because we need to speak the language of the plain analysts, engineers in this specific company. But this part is already codified in the KMM Plus, all the behaviors that we need.
Okay, great, thank you. And David, do you want to say anything about where, or you or Teodora say anything about where the cultures, where you came up with the cultures for the Kanban model?
In terms of the values,
Yeah, the
so
culture, yeah, the values.
what would provide environment for the practices, and if the outcome we want is produced by the practices, what will enable the practice, or what gets in the way of it happening in terms of decision making, actions that people take. So we reversed it from businesses, organizations expect certain outcomes. That leads to certain practices that are required for those outcomes, and the values are required to enable the practices. That's where that came from a lot of talking and thinking and looking at examples and reading case studies that we captured and interviewing people.
And what I could add is that during the beta program, when we were observing how organizations were using the Kanban Maturity Model, we were paying special attention to identify what behaviors organizations demonstrate and help us decide whether certain values are organization or they are just talking about them, but we don't see any demonstration of having this value in the company. And I remember very well that we created a list of behaviors for each one is that we can see and observe and can give us some indication whether the values are present in the company.
Yeah, I seem to remember a session we did in Bilbao in 2018 in an apartment I'd rented at the time, and Steve McGee and I were working on this, and you were sitting on the couch, and I didn't know it at the time, but you were basically creating a spreadsheet with all the content that we had on sticky notes on the wall. And then the very next day you were using it with a client, and later in the week you commented, you know, you guys have done a good job with this because it's already helping me. Yeah.
And also when we were working with the companies and we were making the first pilots with the appraisals, in fact, we are, we were paying attention, observing whether really these characteristics of the behaviors of the people in the companies, in the teams, between teams and management, between different managers in the organizations, how they make decisions. We were taking notes of what we were observing and updating this stuff.
Right. So it's not just a thought experiment, it's material that we've validated in the field over a number of years.
Yep, great. We got another question come in here. I think it's a really good one from Diego Perez. What is your recommendation to start to handle unplanned work when you were at ML1? Who would like to jump in on that? You're in an ML1 situation and you're having unplanned work coming into the system.
So typically we deal with unplanned work with classes of service. In an ML1 situation, you've probably only got individual level WIP limit or maybe a team level WIP limit, but you don't have a real pool system and a WIP limit for the whole system. So unplanned work is going to be disruptive. It's going to increase the WIP in the system. It's going to affect the predictability, but these are all things that we expect at ML1. So the unplanned work, you have, assuming you have to do it, you can't refute it. It depends on the nature of it, whether it's refutable or irrefutable. But I think that the key to dealing with unplanned work effectively is to improve the maturity, to make the system more predictable, and with that to be able to allocate capacity, set capacity aside with a low class of service for say the intangible class of service. And when unplanned work arrives, you block the intangible class of service item and you use the people there to be able to work on the unplanned things. That I think is the answer, that at ML1, dealing with unplanned work is going to be ugly and have consequences, and the real fix is to improve the maturity.
But it's a good point for maturity level 1 organization, because most of them have lots of unplanned work, if not all the work is unplanned. I remember a company that they decided to take some data and they realized that only about 30% of their time is dedicated to the work that they were supposed to do, to the planned work. And 70% of their time was in fact spent dedicated to unplanned work. So similar situations help organizations realize that they need some policies for managing this work. They have to decide whether all this unplanned work has to jump immediately in progress in the system on the Kanban boards, or they have to manage it based on some policies that they have to decide. So maturity level 1 is about discovering these policies. The process is emerging and they are discovering these policies, and they are coming to first agreements about how they have to manage this unplanned work. And all these conversations are really very useful for maturity level 1 organizations.
And thanks for that reminder. The critical thing is you need visibility on it. So if unplanned work comes up, you need to be tracking it. It needs to have a ticket. It needs to be in your Kanban system. And you need to be able to make analysis of how much was planned work and how much was unplanned. And it shouldn't remain invisible. And I remember a time where I've had managers who reported up to me, and it's been part of their SMART goals for the year to improve the actual percentage of tracked and visible work. Sometimes I've seen as low as 50% or less, and we need to get that up to 90% or greater, so that everything that's coming into our environment is something we're tracking and we can see it, we can manage it.
Yes,
right.
and short. And in that case that I presented, that was one of the hints. We start to create visibility of the unplanned work because it was a cancer in that company. And this helped to create policies, as Teodora told, and they start to promote the evolution of this specific company.
All right, excellent. So we've been talking about policies. We have another one related to policies, and this is from Eduardo Carvalho Pinzon. It says, which approach do you recommend for prioritization among the intangible work? Who would like to?
So the whole concept of intangible, it's referring to the cost of delay. So by definition, intangible work isn't urgent. So we can't prioritize it. We would say schedule or sequence it based on urgency. You need to look at something else. And the fact that it's not urgent means it can take a while, you can block it, and no one's going to cry because it's got a very low cost of delay. So how would you go about choosing? Well, first of all, it makes sense to have some capacity allocation for that intangible class of service, low cost of delay work. And then I think you're going to allocate that capacity across different classes of risk. So you need some other way of assessing the risks associated with something. If it's not urgent, what other risks do we care about? It might just be as simple as we have different stakeholders and we need to keep all of them happy. So we need to be doing a little bit of something for each stakeholder, but you need some additional risk dimension to really make the best and optimal use of prioritizing the intangible work. Having said that, this is a question that really has relevance between sort of maturity level 3 and 4. Prior to that, just the fact that you know it's intangible class of service and that it's not urgent that's fantastic information on its own. And if it's not urgent, from a sequencing or scheduling perspective, it doesn't matter what order you do it in.
All right, great. Let's move on to another question. I've got one for Teodora on pull it into the project organization space. Curious if as you've been implementing this, you've encountered any substantial resistance in any project organizations, and if so, what was any techniques you used to dealing with that resistance, or were they just on board from the get-go?
Oh, well, we meet resistance in any organization. I somehow don't like very much the word resistance, because in many organizations, it's not rather resistant, but it's like worrying about how starting using, for example, visual boards that visualize the status of work in real time, how this could be used in the organization, and people become concerned of whether they're using correctly the board, what kind of information they have to visualize, who is seeing it, how people could react to this. So these are kind of concerns that we see in the organization, in project organizations, and in other organizations as well. This is not something particular for project organizations. How we address them? So far, I think the success formula for coping with resistance and with these kinds of concerns among the people in the organizations is working with people from all levels of management in the organizations. And we explain these kind of concerns and the possibility to find them in the organization to the managers of the organizations. And we help them, we ask, in fact, the managers to explain why they are introducing these practices, what is the objective, the purpose of the organization with these initiatives that they are starting, in order to address these concerns and to make people feel comfortable with this way of working. And of course, we are working with these managers in order to help them make the shift from we are managing the people. I want to see that all the people have lots of work to do. Otherwise, we are worrying whether they are really using well their time. So we are working with the people from this team, if you remember the orange people on our image, and help them transfer the way of thinking and these right behaviors in the organizations that address what we would call resistance in the organizations. Of course, we meet resistance in project organizations, but somehow I see a difference when we are working with project organizations who run complex projects, big projects with big budget, with customers who are a very high level of expectations. I find that these organizations are very much focused on achieving the objectives of the projects, achieving all the milestones, achieving the final objectives of the project. They're very much focused on managing well the changes, for example, that are coming from the customers. And from this perspective, I think it's somehow easier because people are already focused on responding to customer changes to customer expectations, meeting milestones and deadlines. So from this perspective, they accept better the introduction of practices from the Kanban Maturity Model.
I think it's really important to recognize that ultimately what we sell people is confidence and credibility. And our approach, the whole evolutionary change approach, is intended to reduce resistance. That we're not reinventing project managers. It's not a new you with a new job title. It's a better version of you with your existing job title. You are a more effective project manager because of the guidance that we're providing you. And if we can get people to take away some of their existing practices in which they lack confidence and adopt other practices, which at first they'll have some anxiety, but very quickly they see this as helping them to be more effective. So our key strategy is to reduce resistance by helping people be a better version of themselves, to give them confidence and credibility.
All right, thank you. I've got one last question here from Michael Gelbach on where can I find the formal appraisal method? And maybe, David, you said that will be coming. So maybe you want to have a few final words on that and anything else you'd like to close out the webinar with.
There is an official beta for the appraisal method, which is being led by Anya Radzakowska on our team. And if you'd like to become part of that beta program, then you should contact us. And as it emerges out of beta, we'll be publishing the material during 2023. It will always be on KMM Plus first. And the likelihood is that we won't do a 3rd edition book. It won't be a very thick book. It's probably going to be a series of smaller, thinner books for KMM 1.3, and there'll be one of those small, thin books for the appraisal method. But my guess is that's a year away. We're still a year away, but you'll have the appraisal method and tools available on KMM Plus prior to that. And the beta, it's limited number of people on the beta program, but you can join that, become part of it.
As well, maybe, David, we can say that from Monday, Fit for Purpose Plus, we would like to invite people to check it out because it will be live.
Yeah, F4P Plus goes live on Monday, and the 3rd edition of the Fit for Purpose book, I think initially in English, and within a few days or a week or so, also in Brazilian Portuguese.
And as well, we would like to encourage you to participate in our templates blog, to send your templates if you have to us using our email, so we can add them for other KMM practitioners and also grant you with our recognition for your contribution.
Excellent. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. I'd like to thank our panelists for some insightful stories around the Kanban maturity model and what they've been successful working with, and look forward to our next partner webinar. Thank you, everyone.
And we are waiting for participants in our contest in LinkedIn page of Kanban Maturity Model.